For a moment, Vexion simply stared at Teho, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Then the Ravager threw back his head and laughed, a sound like breaking glass that echoed through the corridor. "You amuse me, little human," he said, "but I have work to do." Instead of attacking immediately, Vexion leaped back up through the ceiling opening and vanished into the maintenance shafts. His laughter continued to echo from above as he moved through the station's internal structure. "Why did he leave?" Sujin asked, her voice shaking. Dr. Sato was checking her communication device frantically. "He's playing with us." Predators often toy with their prey before the final attack. The group continued toward the safe area, but Teho's unease grew with each step. The evacuation route felt like a trap, leading them deeper into the station where Vexion could control their movements. The red emergency lighting created shadows that seemed to move, and every sound from the ventilation system above made everyone jump. They reached the safe area 15 minutes later, a reinforced section with blast doors and independent systems. Security Chief Mordain was coordinating the search from here, his forearms working multiple control panels simultaneously. "We have sealed all major access points," he reported. "The target cannot escape the station. Can you track him?" Dr. Sato asked. "The maintenance shafts have limited sensors. He appears to be moving constantly, avoiding our security sweeps." Teho studied the station schematics displayed on Mordain's screens. The maintenance system was like a maze connecting every section of the academy. Someone who knew the layout could move anywhere without being detected. "He's not trying to escape," Teho said. "He's hunting." "The containment protocols will—" Mordain was interrupted by an alarm from one of the other sections. A security team had found 3 Etherian students in the library, their gaseous forms disrupted and scattered. They were alive but barely conscious and unable to reform properly. "He's testing different hunting methods," Dr. Sato realized, "learning how to kill each species effectively." More alarms sounded over the next hour. Vexion struck at isolated groups of students, never staying long enough for security to respond. He seemed to know exactly where the teams were searching and always stayed one step ahead of them. The attacks followed a pattern that made Teho's skin crawl. Vexion wasn't killing efficiently. He was experimenting, trying different approaches with different species. Some students he injured and left alive. Others he terrified without touching. A few simply vanished, presumably taken back to whatever lair he had established in the maintenance areas. "Your security systems aren't designed for this," Teho told Mordain. "They're built to handle accidents and technical problems, not intelligent predators." "The Academy has been peaceful for over 300 years, the security chief replied stiffly. "Violence between students is virtually unknown. Because you've never had a real predator here before." On the security monitors, they watched a team of Nexari officers searching the dining hall. The officers moved in a standard search pattern, checking each area methodically, but Teho could see what they couldn't: shadows moving in the ceiling above them, keeping pace with their search. "He's right above them," he said urgently. Mordain tried to contact the team, but Vexion struck before the warning could reach them. Ceiling panels exploded downward and the Ravager dropped into the middle of the security team. His claws made short work of their neural disruptors, and his natural armor deflected their emergency weapons. The officers scattered in panic. They had trained for crowd control and emergency management, not combat with an apex predator. Within minutes, Vexion had injured 2 officers and disappeared back into the ceiling, leaving the others too shaken to continue the search effectively. "He's making us afraid to hunt him," Dr. Sato observed. "Every attack weakens our response." Teho watched the security feeds with growing frustration. The Academy's entire approach was wrong. They were treating Vexion like a natural disaster to be contained, not like a thinking enemy who was actively hunting them. "I need access to the maintenance schematics," he said. "Why?" Mordain asked. "Because someone needs to hunt the hunter." Dr. Sato stared at him. "You can't be serious. You're 19 years old and he's a trained killer." "He's not trained," Teho corrected. "He's instinctive." "There's a difference." He pulled up the station plans on one of the workstations. The maintenance system was complex, but he could see the pattern in Vexion's movements. The Ravager was using the main circulation shafts to move quickly, then dropping into smaller access tunnels for his attacks. "He's treating this like a hunting ground from his homeworld," Teho explained. "But this isn't a natural environment. It's an artificial structure with specific design limitations." "What are you thinking?" Dr. Sato asked. On Earth, when a dangerous predator threatens a community, we don't just hide and hope it goes away. We track it down. Sujin grabbed his arm. Taeho, this isn't Earth. You don't have weapons or backup or any of the things human hunters would use. I don't need them. He was studying the maintenance layouts more carefully now. Vexion has advantages, strength, speed, natural weapons, but he also has weaknesses, such as he's used to hunting prey that runs away. He's used to environments where he can disappear into natural cover, and he's never faced prey that hunts back. Another alarm sounded. This time, Vexion had cornered a group of Quillen students in their dormitory area. The security feeds showed him moving slowly through the corridors, taking his time, savoring their terror. He's getting bolder, Mordain noted. The attacks are lasting longer. Because he's confident now, Taeho said. He's proven that your security can't stop him, so he's starting to enjoy himself. On the screen, they watched Vexion approach the dormitory, where Soft Song and several other Quillens were hiding. The peaceful herbivores had locked their door, but that wouldn't stop a Ravager for more than a few seconds. That's where Sujin and Jiwoo were staying earlier, Dr. Sato said suddenly. He might think they're still there. Taeho was already moving toward the safe area's exit. Open the doors. Absolutely not, Mordain said. I cannot allow you to leave the protected area. Then he's going to kill more students while you debate it. Sujin caught up with him at the door controls. If you're going out there, I'm coming with you. No, this is exactly what he wants, to separate us and pick us off individually. And what you're planning is exactly what he expects. A scared prey animal running around. Panicking, Taeho looked at her. Then at the security monitors showing Vexion tearing through the dormitory door. The Quillen students inside were huddled in the corner, their natural pacifism leaving them completely helpless. Fine, he said. But we do this my way. Dr. Sato stepped forward. What do you need? Taeho was already planning the route in his head. Using his knowledge of the station's layout and his growing understanding of how Vexion thought. Emergency supplies. Anything that can be used as tools or weapons. And I need you to shut down all the lights in sections 7 through 12. That will leave those areas in complete darkness. Exactly. Taeho smiled grimly. Vexion has been using our technology against us. Time to return the favor. As the safe area doors opened, Taeho felt something he hadn't experienced since leaving Earth. The familiar tension of knowing that something dangerous was hunting him, combined with the cold clarity that came when he decided to hunt back. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt like he was home. The field trip to the station's hydroponics bay was supposed to be routine. Professor Veltar wanted the class to study how different species had adapted plant life from their homeworlds to grow in space environments. The huge bay stretched out like an indoor forest, with growing towers reaching up toward artificial suns and streams of nutrient-rich water flowing between the plants. Taeho walked with Sujin and Jiwoo among the growing towers, examining the exotic plants. Some glowed with their own light, others moved without any wind, and a few seemed to track the students' movements as they passed. These are beautiful, Sujin said, touching a flower that shimmered like liquid metal. The Etherians grow these for both food and art. Vexion moved through the garden alone, separated from the main group. He had been quieter than usual that morning, his yellow eyes distant and unfocused. The professors had attributed this to the peaceful environment affecting his mood positively. But Taeho wasn't so sure. Professor Veltar was explaining the nitrogen cycles of Quillen moss when they heard the sound of tearing metal. Everyone turned toward the maintenance section, where Vexion stood over the remains of a service droid. The robot had been completely destroyed, its metal shell ripped apart like paper. Fascinating, Vexion said, flexing his claws. Much easier than expected. Professor Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with alarm colors. Vexion, what are you doing? Testing, he replied simply. His voice had changed, becoming deeper and more predatory. The treatments are wearing off, Professor. I can feel my strength returning. Soft Song made a small whimpering sound, her fur turning pure white. The Etherian students immediately began floating toward the exits, their gaseous forms rippling with panic colors. This is impossible, Professor Veltar said. The neural conditioning is permanent. The chemical suppressors should last for months. Vexion laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your science is impressive, but you do not understand Ravager biology. We adapt, we overcome. It is what we do. He moved toward the closest student, a young Quillen named Gentle Rain. His movements were different now, more fluid and predatory. The artificial calm that had masked his true nature was gone. "Stay back," Professor Veltar commanded, her voice creating harmonic frequencies designed to calm aggressive behavior. Vexion paused, tilting his head. "That worked better yesterday," he said with amusement. Then he struck. Gentle Rain screamed as Vexion's claws raked across his side, tearing through fur and flesh. The Quillen fell to the ground, bleeding from deep cuts. Other students scattered in panic, their peaceful natures giving them no experience in dealing with real violence. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. Security Chief Mordane's voice echoed from the communication system. "All students evacuate to designated safe areas." Security teams are responding. But Vexion was already moving. Instead of pressing his attack on the injured Quillen, he leaped up into the growing towers, using his claws to climb toward the maintenance shafts near the ceiling. Within seconds, he had vanished into the station's ventilation system. "He's in the walls," Tejo said quietly. Professor Veltar was trying to help the wounded Quillen while calling for medical assistance. "The security teams will contain him," she said, but her voice shook with uncertainty. Medical teams arrived quickly along with Security Chief Mordane and 6 heavily armed Nixari officers. The security chief was impressive even among his logical species, with forearms and military modifications that made him look like a walking weapons platform. "The target has accessed the maintenance levels," he announced. "We are sealing all access points and implementing containment protocols." "What kind of weapons do your security teams carry?" Tejo asked. "Neural disruptors designed for crowd control," Mordane replied. "They can stun most species safely without causing permanent damage." "Will they work on a Ravager?" Mordane hesitated. "They are designed for the species commonly found at the Academy. Ravagers are uncommon visitors." Dr. Yuki Sato, one of the human staff members, arrived to check on the human students. She was a psychologist who had been studying interspecies relations at the Academy for 2 years. "I need to ask you all some questions," she said. "Have any of you noticed changes in Vexion's behavior over the past few days?" "He's been watching us," Sujin said, "studying us like we were prey animals. And he asked me about human physiology yesterday," Jiwoo added. "Wanted to know about our reaction times and pain tolerance." Dr. Sato's expression grew grim. "He's been hunting you. The entire time he's been preparing." The evacuation to the secure section took 20 minutes. The designated safe area was a reinforced section of the dormitory levels, with heavy blast doors and independent life support. It was designed to protect students during emergencies like reactor failures or asteroid impacts, not predator attacks. As they walked through the corridors, Tejo studied the route they were taking. The path led through several sections where the maintenance shafts had easy access points. In some areas, the ceiling panels looked thin enough for a determined predator to break through. "This evacuation route isn't safe," he told Dr. Sato. "It's the standard emergency procedure," she replied. "The security teams have cleared the path. For a normal emergency, yes. But Vexion isn't normal. He's had weeks to study the station, to learn all the routes and hiding spots." Dr. Sato stopped walking. "What are you suggesting?" "He's hurting us. This evacuation route takes us exactly where he wants us to go." Before Dr. Sato could respond, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing the corridors in red light. But in those few seconds of darkness, they heard something that made everyone freeze. The sound of claws scraping against metal, somewhere above them in the ceiling. "He's here," Tejo whispered. A ceiling panel 20 feet ahead of them bulged downward, then tore open. Vexion dropped through the opening, landing in a predatory crouch that blocked their path to the safe area. In the red emergency lighting, he looked like something from a nightmare. "Did you really think you could run from me?" he asked, his voice echoing off the corridor walls. "I am Vexion of the Terminus sector. I have hunted across 17 worlds. Your peaceful academy is nothing but a cage full of prey." The students behind them pressed back against the walls, too terrified to move. Some of the smaller species had collapsed completely, overwhelmed by primal fear they had never experienced before. Vexion's yellow eyes swept over the group, and Tejo saw the predator making his choices. The Ravager's gaze lingered on Sujin and Jiwoo, the 2 humans he had been studying most carefully. "I think," Vexion said slowly, "I will start with the Deathworld humans, see if they live up to their reputation. That was when Tai-Ho made a decision that would change everything. While the other students cowered in terror, and the security team searched the wrong sections of the station, he stepped forward to place himself between the Predator and his friends. "If you want them," he said quietly, "you'll have to go through me." Vexion's predatory smile widened, revealing all of his razor-sharp teeth. How interesting. The prey wants to play Predator. Behind him, Dr. Sato was trying to contact security, but the communication system was being jammed. Sujin grabbed Tai-Ho's arm, trying to pull him back. "Don't do this," she whispered. "You can't fight him." Tai-Ho looked at her, then at the terrified alien students huddled against the walls, then back at the 8-foot-tall killing machine blocking their escape route. Every instinct from his Deathworld upbringing was screaming at him to run, to hide, to find another way. Instead, he did something that no one expected. He smiled. "Maybe not," he told Vexion, "but I can try." 3 weeks into the semester, Professor Veltar made an announcement that changed everything. Her crystalline form seemed to pulse with nervous energy as she addressed the xenobiology class. "Students, we have a unique opportunity for learning," she began, her musical voice carrying an odd tension. "The Galactic Rehabilitation Council has approved a special integration exercise. We will be joined by a participant in their new pacification program." Soft Song's fur immediately turned pale gray. "What kind of participant, Professor?" "A Ravager from the Terminus sector," Professor Veltar replied. "His name is Vexion, and he will be joining our class to help us understand predator psychology and rehabilitation techniques." The classroom erupted in shocked whispers. Tai-Ho had heard of Ravagers during his orientation briefings. They were apex predators from the galaxy's outer rim, standing 8 feet tall with natural armor plating and razor-sharp claws. They were known for their incredible speed, strength, and hunting instincts. Logic. Keeper raised one of his forearms. "Professor, surely this is too dangerous. Ravagers are natural killers." "That is exactly why this exercise is so valuable," Professor Veltar said. "Vexion has been through extensive neural conditioning and chemical treatment. His aggressive instincts have been suppressed. This is a chance to study the rehabilitation process and learn about a species we rarely encounter peacefully." Sujin leaned over to whisper to Tai-Ho, "I've read about this program. They use brain implants and hormone suppressors to control violent behavior. Does it work?" Tai-Ho asked quietly. "That's what we're about to find out." The next morning, Vexion arrived. Even seeing him from across the classroom, Tai-Ho understood immediately why the other students were terrified. The Ravager stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in dark, segmented armor that looked like it could stop a bullet. His arms ended in hands with 4-inch claws that gleamed like polished metal. His head was elongated and predatory, with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the classroom light. But what struck Tai-Ho most was the way Vexion moved. Despite his size, he walked with fluid grace, each step controlled and purposeful. His head turned constantly, those yellow eyes tracking every student, every movement, every possible threat or opportunity. "Class, meet Vexion," Professor Veltar said, though her usual confidence seemed forced. "He has volunteered to help us understand his species better." Vexion said nothing. He simply stood there studying them all. When his gaze passed over Tai-Ho, it lingered for a moment longer than on the others. Those yellow eyes seemed to be evaluating him, measuring him. The professor assigned Vexion a seat in the back corner where he could see the entire classroom. Most students had shifted their chairs as far from him as possible, but Tai-Ho noticed that didn't seem to bother the Ravager. If anything, he seemed amused by their fear. "Today we'll discuss hunting patterns across different species," Professor Veltar began, clearly trying to maintain normal class routine. "Who can tell me about pursuit predators versus ambush predators?" Several students raised hands, but their voices were shaky as they answered. Everyone was hyper-aware of the massive predator sitting behind them. Soft Song's fur had turned completely white and stayed that way. The Etherians had dimmed to almost invisible, their usual bright colors muted with fear. When the professor asked about pack hunting, Logic Keeper tried to answer but kept glancing nervously at Vexion. "Pack predators coordinate their attacks to surround prey and cut off escape routes," Vexion said suddenly, his voice a low rumble. "Force the prey to run where the pack wants them to go." The entire classroom fell silent. It was the first time he had spoken, and his words carried the weight of personal experience. Thank you, Vexion, Professor Veltar said carefully. That's a very accurate description. Vexion's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, revealing teeth designed for tearing flesh. I should know. During the break, most students fled the classroom quickly, but Tejo found himself curious rather than afraid. He approached Vexion slowly, hands visible and movements non-threatening. You're the human, Vexion observed, those yellow eyes studying Tejo intently, from the Death World. That's right, Earth. I have heard stories about your world. Dangerous place, many predators. Some, Tejo agreed. What was your world like? Vexion tilted his head as if surprised by the question. Harsh, cold, everything fought for survival. The weak fed the strong. He paused, studying Tejo more carefully. You do not fear me like the others. Should I? Most prey should, yes. There was something calculating in those eyes now. But you are not like most prey, are you, human? Before Tejo could answer, Sujin appeared at his side. Tejo, we should go. Vexion's attention immediately shifted to her, his head moving with that same predatory focus. His nostrils flared slightly as if he was memorizing her scent. Another human, female, interesting. Sujin took Tejo's arm and pulled him away. Once they were in the corridor, she shook her head. What were you doing? That thing was evaluating you like a piece of meat? He was just curious, Tejo said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. Curious predators are the most dangerous kind. Over the next few days, Vexion became a disturbing presence in their classes. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his comments revealed a mind that thought constantly about hunting, killing, and survival. He described tracking techniques with the enthusiasm of someone discussing a favorite hobby. He analyzed the classroom layout in terms of escape routes and ambush points. Most troubling was the way he watched the other students. His gaze would follow them as they moved, lingering on the smaller, weaker ones. He seemed particularly interested in the humans, especially Sujin and Jiwoo. It's like he's memorizing us, Jiwoo whispered during one class, learning our patterns. Kangmin had been researching Ravager biology in his spare time. According to the files, they're ambush predators in the wild. They study their prey for days before attacking, learning routines and weaknesses. But he's been treated, Sujin pointed out. The neural conditioning should prevent that kind of behavior. Should, Tejo repeated. But what if it doesn't? Professor Veltar seemed increasingly nervous as the week progressed. She had trouble maintaining eye contact with Vexion, and her crystalline form had lost some of its usual brilliance. During one lecture about defensive adaptations, she asked Vexion directly about Ravager hunting methods. How do your people typically approach prey? She asked, trying to sound academic. Vexion was quiet for a long moment, those yellow eyes distant. We watch, we learn. We find the moment when prey is most vulnerable. His voice had a dreamy quality, as if he was remembering something pleasant. The fear in their eyes when they realize they have been chosen. The desperate attempts to escape. The final moment when they understand that escape is impossible. The classroom was dead silent. Professor Veltar's crystalline body had gone completely pale. Of course, Vexion added quickly. That was before my treatment. Now I am peaceful. But his smile suggested otherwise. That night, Tejo lay awake in his dormitory room staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong with Vexion's behavior. The Ravager's responses felt rehearsed, like he was saying what he thought the professors wanted to hear. But his body language, the way he moved and watched, told a different story. Through his room's transparent wall, Tejo could see the stars beyond the station. Earth was somewhere out there, with its dangerous storms and hungry predators. Suddenly, he found himself missing home more than ever. He had a feeling that the galaxy's most advanced rehabilitation program was about to fail catastrophically. The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Tejo Kim stepped onto the docking platform of Galactic Academy Station Omega-7. The massive station stretched out before him like a small city floating in space. Through the transparent walls, he could see the blue-green planet Centauri Prime spinning slowly below them. Welcome to your new home, said Sujin Park, the only other human on his shuttle. She had arrived a week earlier and volunteered to show him around. Her dark hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had already figured out how things worked here. Tejo shouldered his single bag and followed her down the corridor. The academy was huge, with levels stretching both up and down from the main hub. Students of dozens of different species walked, floated, or slithered past them. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Taiho had trouble figuring out which end was their head. "That's a Quillen," Sujin said, pointing to a tall, thin creature with soft fur and large, gentle eyes. "They eat plants and spend most of their time meditating. Very peaceful. And those floating orbs? Those are Etherians. They're made of gas and communicate through color changes." A group of Etherians drifted by, their translucent bodies shifting from blue to green as they passed. One of them paused near Taiho, turning a bright orange color before floating away quickly. "What did orange mean?" Taiho asked. Sujin shrugged. "Probably curiosity mixed with fear. Most species here think humans are dangerous." "Dangerous us? We come from what they call a death world," she explained as they walked. "Earth has extreme gravity, violent weather, and predators that would terrify most of these species. They think we're all barely controlled savages." They passed through the main student center, a huge open space with shops and restaurants designed for dozens of different species. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond. Taiho saw students studying at floating tables. Others gathered around pools of some glowing liquid, and a few that seemed to be absorbing sunlight from artificial sun lamps. "There are 12 humans total in the academy," Sujin continued, "out of about 4,000 students. We're still pretty new to this whole galactic civilization thing." She introduced him to the other humans as they found them. Kangmin Lee was studying engineering, his workstation covered with holographic designs that hurt Taiho's eyes to look at. Ji Wuhan was working on alien languages and could already speak basic Quillen and Nexari. Hunwoo Choi was in the medical program, learning to treat species with completely different biology than humans. "The classes are interesting," Jiwoo told him, "but some of the professors treat us like we might explode at any moment. They're always warning us about the no-violence policy." "No violence?" Taiho asked. "Absolutely none," Kangmin said. "Even raising your voice aggressively can get you expelled. Most species here evolved from prey animals, so they're naturally peaceful. Physical fighting is almost unknown in their cultures." That evening, Sujin showed him to his dormitory room. The space was designed to be adjustable for different species, so the furniture could be resized and the atmosphere could be changed if needed. Taiho's room was set up for human needs with normal oxygen levels and familiar-looking furniture. "Get some sleep," Sujin said. "Tomorrow you start classes and Professor Veltar can be intimidating on the first day." The next morning, Taiho found his way to the xenobiology classroom. Professor Veltar was a crystalline, looking like a walking sculpture made of living diamond. Her voice had a musical quality that made everything sound important. "Welcome, students, to advanced xenobiology," she said, her crystal body catching the light as she moved. "This semester we will study the fascinating diversity of life in our galaxy." The classroom held about 30 students of 15 different species. Taiho sat next to a nervous-looking Quillen named Soft Song, whose fur kept changing from brown to gray. Behind him, 3 Nexari students took notes with their multiple arms, their logical minds already categorizing everything the professor said. "Each species," Professor Veltar continued, "has evolved unique adaptations to survive in their environment. The Quillens developed their peaceful nature and plant-based diet to thrive in the gentle forests of their homeworld. The Etherians became gaseous to float through the thick atmosphere of their planet." Her crystalline eyes turned toward Taiho. "And humans developed remarkable endurance and problem-solving abilities to survive on one of the galaxy's most dangerous planets." Several students turned to look at Taiho, some with curiosity, others with what looked like fear. He tried to smile reassuringly, but that only seemed to make them more nervous. After class, Soft Song approached him carefully. "Is it true that your planet has creatures that hunt other intelligent beings for food?" "Well, not intelligent beings," Taiho said. "But yes, we have predators. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks. Lots of dangerous animals." Soft Song's fur turned completely white. "And you live among these monsters?" "They're not monsters," Taiho explained. "They're just animals trying to survive like everyone else. We learn to be careful around them, and most of the time we stay out of each other's way." "But how do you sleep at night knowing such creatures exist on your world?" Taiho thought about it. "I guess we just got used to it. We learned to build safe shelters, to travel in groups, to be aware of our surroundings. It became part of how we live." Over the next few days, Taiho settled into the academy routine. The classes were fascinating, even if some of his classmates still seemed nervous around him. He learned about species that communicated through scent, others that could see magnetic fields, and civilizations that had never known war or conflict. During meals, he often sat with the other humans, but sometimes joined mixed groups of alien students who were curious about Earth. He told them about oceans and mountains, about storms and seasons, about the amazing variety of life on his homeworld. "Your planet sounds terrifying," said a Nexari student named Logic Keeper. "How did your species survive long enough to develop intelligence?" "Maybe because it was so dangerous," Sujin suggested. "We had to get smart fast or we wouldn't have made it." The alien students found this idea fascinating and disturbing. They came from worlds where the greatest dangers were usually natural disasters or resource shortages, not daily threats from predators or harsh environments. As his first week ended, Tejo was starting to feel at home in the academy. The initial fear from other students was fading, replaced by curiosity about the strange humans from the dangerous Deathworld. He was looking forward to learning more about the galaxy and sharing what he knew about Earth. He had no idea that everything was about to change. The corridors of Section 7 were pitch black when Tejo and Sujin entered them. They moved carefully, using their hands to feel along the walls. Behind them, the safe area doors sealed shut, cutting off their escape route. "I can't see anything," Sujin whispered. "Good. Neither can he." Tejo paused at a junction, listening carefully. Vexion's eyes are adapted for his homeworld. They're sensitive to movement and heat, but they need some light to work properly. They had spent 20 minutes gathering supplies from the emergency lockers. Tejo carried a maintenance toolkit, some spare power cables, and a small chemical heating unit used for emergency repairs. Sujin had grabbed medical supplies and a portable scanner that could detect life signs. "Where are we going?" she asked. "The old waste recycling plant on level 15. It's been shut down for maintenance, so there's no power and no ventilation. If we can lure him there, we can control the environment." They moved through the dark corridors slowly, using the station's layout to their advantage. Tejo had memorized the route during his weeks at the academy, noting details that most students ignored. Emergency access panels, power junction boxes, structural weak points. All the things you learned to notice when you came from a world where survival meant paying attention to your environment. Behind them, they could hear sounds echoing through the ventilation system. Vexion was moving, hunting, searching for new prey. His earlier confidence was being replaced by frustration as the security teams continued to evade him, and his preferred hunting grounds were sealed off one by one. "He's getting angry," Sujin observed, hearing the sound of metal being torn apart somewhere above them. "Angry predators make mistakes," Tejo replied. "They stop thinking and start reacting." They reached the maintenance elevator that would take them to level 15. The car was stuck between floors, its power cut off along with everything else in this section. But the emergency ladder in the shaft was still accessible. As they climbed down through the dark shaft, Tejo explained his plan. "Vexion has been winning because he's fighting on his terms. He picks the time, the place, the target. But in the recycling plant, I can choose the battlefield. What makes you think he'll follow us there? Because he's not just hunting randomly anymore. He's specifically after the humans now. We represent something he doesn't understand. Prey that isn't afraid of him." They reached level 15 and made their way to the recycling facility. The large chamber was filled with dormant machinery designed to break down organic waste and recycle it into useful materials. With the power off, the massive processing unit stood silent in the darkness. Tejo began setting up his preparations immediately. Using the maintenance tools and power cables, he rigged several improvised traps around the chamber. Nothing that would seriously injure a Ravager, but devices that would slow him down and reveal his position. "What are these supposed to do?" Sujin asked, watching him work. "Distraction and delay. Vexion is faster and stronger than me, so I can't fight him directly. But I can make him fight on my terms instead of his." He positioned the chemical heating units around the chamber, creating sources of heat that would confuse Vexion's thermal vision. Then he used the power cables to create tripwires that would trigger noisemakers when disturbed. "The goal isn't to kill him," Tejo explained. "It's to prove that he's not invulnerable. Once the other students see that he can be challenged, they'll stop being paralyzed by fear." Sujin checked her scanner. "I'm reading multiple life signs moving through the upper levels. He's getting closer. Good. That means the bait is working. The bait was simple but effective. Before leaving the safe area, Tejo had sent a message through the communication system, broadcasting on the emergency frequency that Vexion would certainly be monitoring. The message claimed that the human students had found a way off the station and were gathering at the recycling plant before attempting to escape. It was a lie, but it was a lie designed to appeal to a predator's instincts. Vexion wouldn't be able to resist the opportunity to catch all his primary targets in one location. They didn't have to wait long. The sound of claws scraping on metal echoed through the ventilation shafts above the recycling chamber. Vexion was moving carefully now, probably suspicious of the trap, but unable to resist the opportunity. "He knows we're here," Sujin whispered. "Of course he does, but he doesn't know what we're planning." A ceiling panel 20 feet away bulged downward, then tore open. Vexion dropped through the opening, landing in his characteristic predatory crouch. In the darkness, his yellow eyes glowed like twin stars. "Clever little humans," he said, his voice echoing off the chamber walls. "You think you can trap me in this mechanical cave?" "Maybe," Tejo replied, stepping out where Vexion could see him. "Or maybe I just wanted to have this conversation somewhere private." Vexion laughed, the sound harsh and predatory. "What conversation?" "You are prey. I am predator. There is nothing to discuss." "That's where you're wrong." Tejo began moving slowly around the chamber, keeping his distance from the Ravager. "You're not the apex predator here. You're just another animal trying to survive in an environment you don't understand." Bold words for someone about to die. "Are you going to kill me?" Tejo asked. "Because you've had plenty of chances already. In the corridor in the hydroponics bay during the evacuation, but you keep hesitating." Vexion's eyes narrowed. "I do not hesitate. You've been playing with us instead of killing us. That's not efficient hunting. That's entertainment. Which means you're not the perfect predator you pretend to be. You're just a bully who's gotten used to easy prey." The Ravager snarled and leaped forward, but Tejo was already moving. He had spent the past hour memorizing every obstacle in the chamber, and he used that knowledge now to stay ahead of Vexion's attacks. The first trap triggered as Vexion landed where Tejo had been standing. The noisemaker exploded in a burst of sound and light that momentarily confused the predator. Tejo used those few seconds to put more distance between them. "Your homeworld trained you to hunt in forests and caves," he called out as he moved between the processing units. "But this isn't your world. Here, intelligence matters more than claws." Vexion roared in frustration and charged again. This time he triggered 2 more traps, filling the chamber with smoke and heat that interfered with his senses. He was moving more wildly now, letting anger override his hunting instincts. "You're losing control," Tejo observed, staying mobile. "Real predators don't do that. They stay calm, they adapt, they think. But you're just reacting. I will tear you apart," Vexion screamed, but his attacks were becoming less coordinated as his rage grew. Sujin was watching from a safe position near the exit, her scanner tracking both of their movements. "His life signs are spiking," she called out. Heart rate and adrenaline through the roof. "He's never had to hunt something that fought back intelligently," Tejo replied, dodging another clumsy attack. "On his world, prey runs away. Here, I'm making him work for it." The chase continued for another 10 minutes, with Vexion becoming increasingly frustrated as his prey refused to behave like prey should. Every trap he triggered, every attack he missed. Every moment that Tejo stayed alive was proof that the mighty Ravager wasn't as invincible as everyone believed. Finally, Vexion made the mistake that Tejo had been waiting for. In his rage, he charged blindly toward where he thought Tejo was hiding. Instead, he ran straight into the chamber's main waste processing unit, hitting the massive machinery with enough force to dent the metal housing. The impact stunned him for just a moment, but that was long enough. Tejo triggered his final trap, a cascade of the remaining power cables that dropped from the ceiling to entangle the Ravager's limbs and pin him against the processing unit. Vexion struggled against the cables, his claws cutting through some of them, but there were too many to break free immediately. For the first time since his arrival at the academy, the apex predator was trapped. "This is impossible," he snarled. "You are prey. Weak. Helpless." "No," Tejo said quietly, approaching carefully but staying out of reach. "I'm human, and humans are the galaxy's other apex predators. We just hunt differently than you do." Sujin had activated her scanner's communication function, broadcasting their location to the security teams. Help was coming, but Taeho had one more thing to do. The difference between us, he told Vexion, is that I know when to stop. The captured Ravager stared at him with a mixture of rage and something that might have been respect. For the first time in his life, he had been outmatched by prey that refused to run.